Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Mm.
Exists in humble obeisances of Shri Prabhupada.
Mm.
Prabhu, I wanted to ask this question. Prabhupada, at certain places for the same word, he gives different meanings, in different situations. So, what I wanted to ask is, how do we understand, like the same word but different meanings?
So he is the realized soul, you know. So we have to accept whatever he says. So he is teaching us that same words got different meanings also. Correct?
Yes, Prabhu.
So you can understand that he is trying to tell us in what context he is using it, you know. Correct?
Yes, Prabhu.
So we just have to accept, no. Not that because he said this here like that and he said there like that, therefore he's wrong. Correct?
Yes.
He's trying to stress a point, so he quotes a verse. So you have to understand the application of the verse on that context.
Yes, Prabhu.
So the same verse can be applied here, can apply there also, same way.
Yes, Prabhu.
So we have to learn from the Acharya.
Yes. Yes, Prabhu. Also, on that note, I wanted to ask this one other thing. Like certain times, when we hear Prabhupada bhajans, like the lyrics might, the Prabhupada, the lyrics which he sings, they might seemingly, not be so-called correct according to our views. But now, how do we understand that, Prabhu?
The song is the same, no? Correct?
Yes, Prabhu. But then, the lyrics sometimes, because I've observed when Prabhupada sings the Shad Goswami Ashtakam, at certain places, the lyrics, Prabhupada sings it a little differently. So, like, how do we understand that? Like, of course, it is not a mistake, but how do we understand that, Prabhu?
Sometimes Prabhupada stress certain part of the song more, you know. Like, for example, you sing Krishna, Kirtana, Ganana, he stress that more, you know.
Yes.
Understand?
Yes, Prabhu.
So you have to just accept, no, the Acharya, know what mood he's singing, you know.
Yes.
He's always in trance, you know, singing the songs to please Krishna. Understand?
Yes, Prabhu.
Like Chintamani, he sings the Chintamani mostly. He doesn't sing the other part all.
Yes, Prabhu.
When you hear Govinda Madi Purusham, for you is maybe for you get some ecstasy, but for me, I don't feel anything. But he is in spiritual bliss, no? He chanting Govinda Madi Purusham,
yes,
continuously.
Yes, Prabhu.
Understand? So he's a pure devotee, you know. Like you go to Jagannath Puri and you see the Lord and you just say nice and you come back.
Yes.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he saw the Lord, he fell down and fainted.
Yes. Yes, Prabhu.
So they are in a different plane, you know. Their realization, their relationship with Krishna and all is in a different level.
Yes, Prabhu.
So how to understand? There's a verse. Let me show you this verse, In this verse, it said, in this verse, it said that we cannot try to understand the mind of a pure devotee, you know. So it is a different level. So we cannot try to understand the mind of a pure devotee.
Yes.
Hmm?
Yes. No, Prabhu, because like certain new people, they might have this doubt that he's singing, singing so-called wrongly. So just for the clarification.
They find fault with everything.
That is a fact.
So why we have to worry about this kind of people, no?
That is true.
Hmm? You want to read?
Yes, Prabhu. Even the most learned man cannot understand the words, activities, and symptoms of a person situated in love of Godhead.
Understand?
Yes. Even a most learned scholar cannot understand the activities and symptoms of an exalted personality in whose heart love of Godhead has awakened.
Hmm. So how you can try to understand the mood of a pure devotee? Hmm?
Oh, yes, that is a fact.
Hmm?
That is true.
So better not try to do that, no?
Hmm.
In that case, you commit offenses, worse.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, Prabhu.
So therefore, we simply accept, no?
Yes, Prabhu.
Why try to evaluate when we are not in that level?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
For example, one day Prabhupada was going out and one of the bhaktas said, "Hey, Prabhupada, you don't have tilak on your face, no?" Prabhupada has been up since what? 1 o'clock or something.
Yes.
Then Prabhupada commented. So he said, okay, bring the tilak, and Prabhupada put on. And then in the class he said, pure devotee have transcendental tilak.
Yes.
Hmm?
Yes.
Listen,
Yes, Prabhu.
so we should be careful when we try to comment on the pure devotee. Hmm? So we cannot treat the pure devotee like an ordinary person, no?
Person. Yes.
Hmm?
Yes, Prabhu.
So it says an offense, no?
Yes.
You want to read?
Yes, Prabhu. One should know the Acharya as myself and never disrespect him in any way. One should not envy him, thinking him an ordinary man, for he is the representative of all the demigods.
Hmm?
Yes.
Understand? So because
Yes.
familiarity breeds contempt, no?
Contempt. Yes.
So you think that, oh, Prabhupada is an ordinary person. That's like how nowadays many people in ISKCON are thinking. So that's offensive mentality.
Yes, Prabhu.
Hmm?
Yes.
The moment you try to bring the spiritual master to your level, then everything is finished.
Finished.
Hmm?
Yes, Prabhu.
Like Tamal Krishna, he was saying, Prabhupada fell asleep while, giving a class, and Prabhupada was taking snuff, and so many things he was complaining about Prabhupada. So this is offenses, no? Understand?
Yes, Prabhu.
That's why two people are they have to be very careful in their service, the pujari and one who is serving the spiritual master. The moment the pujari starts thinking that this is stone, then he's in big trouble. Or the disciples serving the Guru think that the Guru is surviving only because of the disciples, efforts, then big trouble. Hmm?
Yes.
You follow?
Yes, Prabhu.
So we should not at any time, minimize the position of the spiritual master.
Yes.
You follow?
Yes, Prabhu.
So this is the danger, because everybody has got this tendency, especially one who is little intelligent, you start thinking he knows better.
Yes, Prabhu.
Hmm?
Yes, Prabhu.
Understand? Because we are always in the bodily concept, and we always staying with the karmis, and the karmis are always thinking like that. They are better and others don't know.
Yes, Prabhu. Very puffed up nature.
Right?
Puffed up by nature.
You want to read this?
Yes, Prabhu. The spiritual master should be considered to be directly the Supreme Lord because he gives transcendental knowledge for enlightenment. Consequently, for one who maintains the material conception that the spiritual master is an ordinary human being, everything is frustrated. His enlightenment and his Vedic studies and knowledge are like the bathing of an elephant. Yes, it's useless.
Purport. You can read.
Yes, Prabhu. It is recommended that one honor the spiritual master as being on an equal status with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sakshat dharitvena samasta shastraihi. This is enjoined in every scripture. Acharya Mam Vijaniyat, Srimad Bhagavatam 11:17-27. One should consider the Acharya to be as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In spite of all these instructions, if one considers the spiritual master an ordinary human being, one is doomed. His study of the Vedas and his austerities and penances for enlightenment are all useless, like the bathing of an elephant. An elephant bathes in a lake quite thoroughly, but as soon as it comes onto the shore, it takes some dust from the ground and strews it over his body.
Happened,
Thus, there is no meaning to the elephant's bath. There's no meaning to the elephant's bath. One may argue by saying that since the spiritual master's relatives and men of his neighborhood consider him an ordinary human being, what is the fault on the part of?
Why you gone again down, huh? Now we can hear you.
Now you can hear me, Prabhu?
Now we can hear you.
Okay, Prabhu. So, an elephant bathes in a lake quite thoroughly, but as soon as it comes onto the shore, it takes some dust from the ground and strews it over its body. Thus, there is no meaning to the elephant's bath. One may argue by saying that since the spiritual master's relatives and the men of his neighborhood consider him an ordinary human being, what is the fault on the part of the disciple who considers the spiritual master an ordinary human being? This will be answered in the next verse. But the injunction is that the spiritual master should never be considered an ordinary man. One should strictly adhere to the instructions of the spiritual master. For if he is pleased, certainly the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado yasya prasadan nagati kutopi.
Yes?
Yes, Prabhu. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, is the master of all other living entities and of the material nature. His lotus feet are sought and worshipped by great saintly persons like Vyasa. Nonetheless, there are fools who consider Lord Krishna an ordinary human being. Purport. The example of Lord Krishna as being the Supreme Personality of Godhead is appropriate in regard to understanding the spiritual master. The spiritual master is called Sevaka Bhagavan, the servitor personality of Godhead, and Krishna is called Sevya Bhagavan, the supreme personality of Godhead who is to be worshipped. The spiritual master is the worshipper God, whereas the supreme personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the worshipable God. This is the difference between the spiritual master and the supreme personality of Godhead. Another point, Bhagavad Gita, which constitutes the instructions of the supreme personality of Godhead, is presented by the spiritual master as it is, without deviation. Therefore, the absolute truth is present in the spiritual master. As clearly stated in text 26, Jnana Deepa Prade, the supreme personality of Godhead gives real knowledge to the entire world, and the spiritual master, as a representative of the supreme personality of Godhead, carries the message throughout the world. Therefore, on the absolute platform, there is no difference between the spiritual master and the supreme personality of Godhead. If someone considers the supreme personality, Krishna or Lord Ramachandra, to be an ordinary human being, this does not mean that the Lord becomes an ordinary human being. Similarly, if the family members of the spiritual master, who is the bona fide representative of the supreme personality of Godhead, consider the spiritual master to be an ordinary human being, this does not mean that he becomes an ordinary human being. The spiritual master is as good as the supreme personality of Godhead, and therefore one who is very serious about the spiritual advancement must regard the spiritual master in this way. Even a slight deviation from this understanding can create disaster in the disciples' Vedic studies and austerities.
Yes.
The last sentence is very instructive, Prabhu.
So you should be very careful when you deal with the spiritual master.
Yes, he's on the transcendental platform.
Yes.
Yes, Prabhu.
So therefore, when you deal with the spiritual master, you should not become familiar.
Yes, Prabhu. Okay, I'll read from you. No one should consider the deity in the temple to be made of stone or wood, nor should one consider the spiritual master an ordinary human being. No one should consider a Vaishnava to belong to a particular caste or creed, and no one should consider Charanamrit or Ganges water to be like ordinary water. Nor should anyone consider the Hare Krishna Mahamantra to be a material vibration. All these expansions of Krishna in the material world are simply demonstrations of the Lord's mercy and willingness to give facility to his devotees who are engaged in his devotional service. Within the material world.
Yes.
Yes, Prabhu.
So you see how important to understand the position of the spiritual master.
Yes, Prabhu.
If you start thinking the spiritual master is an ordinary person, everything is finished.
Finished. Yes, Prabhu.
You understand?
Yes, Prabhu.
So we should be very careful.
Yes.
Because of the spiritual master only, we are getting some mercy.
Yes, Prabhu.
We cannot go directly to Krishna, that's not possible, no?
Yes.
So therefore, spiritual master is the essence for spiritual advancement. Those who have implicit faith in Guru and Krishna only, automatically everything is revealed. Huh?
Prabhu.
Hmm.
Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed.
Hmm. Correct.
Yes, Prabhu.
Hmm. If you don't have faith in Guru, how can all these things be revealed to you?
Hmm.
Hmm? Correct.
Yes, Prabhu.
So therefore, we should always worship the spiritual master 3 times a day, it says. Correct?
Yes, Prabhu.
Hmm?
Yes,
Why we have to worship the spiritual master 3 times a day? Hmm? Why?
because he's as good as Krishna.
Because it's opening our eyes, no?
Yes. Chakhudan diloje.
Hmm.
Janme Prabhu se.
So therefore, if anyone thinks he's better than the Guru, then he's digging a spiritual grave. Hmm?
Yes, Prabhu.
The moment he thinks he's better than the Guru, then everything is finished, you know.
As soon as a foolish disciple tries to overtake his spiritual master and becomes ambitious to occupy his post, he immediately falls down. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado yasya prasadan nagati kutopi. If the spiritual master is considered an ordinary man, the disciple surely loses his chance to advance further. Despite a very rigid life in devotional service, Bharat Maharaj did not consult a spiritual master when he became overly attached to a deer. Consequently, he became strongly attached to the deer, and forgetting his spiritual routine, he fell down.
Understand?
Yes, Prabhu.
Hmm? So therefore, Prabhupada may sing like this or like that or whichever, you just accept.
Yes.
You cannot question this, you know, why Prabhupada is, why? Hmm? You follow?
Yes, Prabhu.
Hmm? So be very careful when you deal with the spiritual master, the deities,
Yes, Prabhu.
for that
Sure.
matter, even devotees.
Yes, Prabhu.
Because we should stop this habit of blaspheming, no?
Hmm.
You understand?
Yes, Prabhu.
Says here,
As you had mentioned, familiarity breeds contempt.
correct. So if you don't check this, then you start, blaspheming in this way, one thing after the other.
Yes, Prabhu.
So therefore, it's better to be safe than sorry, no?
Yes. Yes, Prabhu.
See? A candidate for spiritual advancement must be non-violent. Firstly, he must be non-violent. That means he must be cannot eat meat, don't do all kind of things. No?
Yes.
Must follow in the footsteps of great acharyas. You see this? Huh?
Yes.
Must always remember the nectar of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Must follow the regulative principle without material desire and while following the regulatory principles should not blaspheme others. You see this part here?
Yes, Prabhu.
Huh?
Yes.
Very important. Correct?
Yes, Prabhu.
A devotee should lead a very simple life and not be disturbed by the duality of opposing elements. He should learn to tolerate them. Hmm? Right?
Yes, Prabhu.
Can you read? Someone can read? Anyone else want to read?
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Please read.
Yeah.
The devotees are actually saintly persons or sadhus. The first qualification of a sadhu or devotee is Ahimsa or non-violence. Persons interested in the path of devotional service or in going back home, back to Godhead, must first practice Ahimsa or non-violence. A sadhu is described as Tidikshoha Karunigaha. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:25-21. A devotee should be tolerant and should be very much compassionate toward others. For example, if he suffers personal injury, he should tolerate it. But if someone else suffers injury, the devotee need not tolerate it. The whole world is full of violence, and a devotee's first business is to stop this violence, including the unnecessary slaughter of animals. A devotee is the friend not only of human society, but of all living entities, for he sees all living entities as sons of Supreme Personality of Godhead. He does not claim himself to be the only son of God and allow all others to be killed, thinking that they have no soul. This kind of philosophy is never advocated by a pure devotee of the Lord. Suhrada Sarva Dehinam. A true devotee is the friend of all living entities. Krishna claims in Bhagavad Gita to be the father of all species of living entities. Consequently, the devotee of Krishna is always a friend of all. This is called Ahimsa. Such non-violence can be practiced only when we follow in the footsteps of great acharyas. Therefore, according to our Vaishnava philosophy, we have to follow the great acharyas of the four sampradayas or disciplic successions. Trying to advance in spiritual life outside the disciplic succession is simply ludicrous. It is said, therefore, Acharyan Purusho Veda. One who follows the disciplic succession of Acharyas knows things as they are. Chandogya Upanishad 6.14.2. Tat Vijnanartham sa gurum eva bhigached. Eva bhigached. In order to understand, MU means Mundaga Upanishad. Prabhu. MU means?
What?
MU means?
Manduka Upanishad.
Mundaga Upanishad. In order to understand the transcendental science, one must approach the bona fide spiritual master. The word Smritya is very important in spiritual life. Smritya means remembering Krishna always. Life should be molded in such a way that one cannot remain alone without thinking of Krishna. We should live in Krishna so that while eating, sleeping, walking and working, we remain only in Krishna. Our Krishna Consciousness Society recommends that we arrange our living so that we can remember Krishna. In our ISKCON society, the devotees, while engaged in making spiritual sky incense, are also are also hearing about the glories of Krishna or his devotees. The Shastra recommends Smartavya Sadadam Vishnu. Lord Vishnu should be remembered always, constantly. Visamartavyo na jadujit. Vishnu should never be forgotten. That is the spiritual way of life. Smritya. This remembrance of Lord can be continued if we hear about him constantly. It is therefore recommended in this verse. Mugundajridagriya Siduna. Sidhu means nectar. To hear about Krishna from Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita or similar authentic literature is to live in Krishna consciousness. Such concentration in Krishna consciousness can be achieved by persons who are strictly following the rules and regulative principles. We have recommended in our Krishna consciousness movement that a devotee chant 16 rounds on beads daily and follow the regulative principles. That will help the devotee be fixed in his spiritual advancement in life. It is also stated in this verse that one can advance by controlling the senses. Yamai. By controlling the senses, one can become a Swami or Goswami. One who is therefore enjoying this super title. Swami or Goswami must be very strict in controlling his senses. Indeed, he must be master of his senses. This is possible when one does not desire any material sense gratification. If by chance the senses want to work independently, he must control them. If we simply practice avoiding material sense gratification, controlling the senses is automatically achieved. Another important point mentioned in this connection is anindaya. We should not criticize others' methods of religion. There are different types of religious systems operating under different qualities of material nature. Those operating in the modes of ignorance and passion cannot be as perfect as the system in the mode of goodness. In Bhagavad Gita, everything has been divided into 3 qualitative divisions. Therefore, religious systems are similarly categorized. When people are mostly under the modes of passion and ignorance, their system of religion will be of the same quality. A devotee, instead of criticizing such systems, will encourage the followers to stick to their principles so that gradually they can come to the platform of religion in goodness. Simply by criticizing them, a devotee's mind will be agitated. Thus, a devotee should tolerate and learn to stop agitation. Another feature of the devotee is nirihaya, simple living. Niriha means gentle, meek, or simple. A devotee should not live very gorgeously in and imitate a materialistic person. Plain living and high thinking are recommended for a devotee. He should accept only so much as he needs to keep the material body fit for the execution of devotional service. He should not eat or sleep more than is required. Simply eating for living and not living for eating and sleeping only 6 to 7 hours a day are principles to be followed by devotees. As long as the body is there, it is subjected to the influence of climatic changes, disease, and natural disturbances, the threefold miseries of material existence. We cannot avoid them. Sometimes we receive letters from neophyte devotees questioning why they have fallen sick, although pursuing Krishna consciousness. They should learn from this how to become tolerant. Dvanda Tidikshaya. This is the world of duality. One should not think that because he has fallen sick, he has fallen from Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness can continue without impediment from any material opposition. Lord Sri Krishna therefore advises in Bhagavad Gita 2:14, Tam Tidikshasva Bharadam. Tam Tidikshasva Bharadam. My dear Arjuna, please try to tolerate all these disturbances. Be fixed in your Krishna conscious activities.
So you can see here how one should learn how to be not criticizing,
Yes.
Yes, Prabhu.
So therefore it is very important not to blaspheme, Otherwise, our
Yes.
advancement will be checked, no?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
This is the problem when we mix with the non-devotees. The non-devotees are always criticizing.
Yes.
That's why associating with them is very detrimental. Because that's all they do. They gripe on everything.
Yes, Prabhu.
They have always something bad to say of everybody.
Fault finding.
That's why associating with them is very dangerous. If we carry the same disease into the devotee circle, then again we will become offensive.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
So in fact, we should learn how to see the good only, that is helping us. As Prabhupada many times say, better to be the bee that goes to the nectar rather than the fly that goes to the soul.
Yes.
Then we will start finding fault even in the spiritual master. Correct?
Yes, Prabhu.
So is this clear?
Yes, Prabhu. Very clear.
Anybody else have any other questions? Nobody have questions. So many of you here and nobody have questions. Surprising.
Any other questions? Yes, bro.
We are not able to see time.
In the chat also, I don't see any questions yet.
So looks like they're making my...
Prabhu, I have a follow-up question. Based on what we read just now, the purport, in that it is mentioned that we should not criticize the other religious things. Like, does that imply Christianity, Islam, and all of that?
Well, criticizing and explaining the weakness of the society is different, no? Suppose it says in the commandment, thou shalt not kill.
Yes.
Then you point out that commandment, that's not criticizing.
Mm.
Understand?
Yes.
So we are like Prabhupada, he picks out the fault in the not following the rules,
Mm.
So that's not criticizing.
Yes.
Criticizing means you unnecessarily you're talking bad about them, no? Right?
Yes. Because Prabhu, there was one devotee with us. He was from the US actually. So he was with us for a few months. But then all of a sudden he went to this Eastern Orthodox Christianity. And then we were explaining, I mean, Christianity is all right. There is no problem with it. But the bona fide followers are very rarely to be found, Prabhu. Even Christianity, very rarely bona fide followers are to be found there. Like, how you can just go like that? But then we don't know. He just left.
Because sometimes they find that the rules and regulation in the Hare Krishna movement is very strict,
Yes, exactly. He told the same thing. I'm not able to adapt to the rules, so I'm just going to something which can take me more easily.
So I can break some principles, no? Today there was an incident, one boy in one place wanted to get married. So the parents came to see him as the groom. So they asked questions and he said he doesn't eat onion, garlic and all these things, Then the girl rejected him because he's too strict. Can you imagine? Onion, garlic, coffee, tea is too strict.
If that is strict, then
they say in their temple, Hare Krishna ISKCON temple, the president sometimes takes alcohol. He said sometimes is all right. And they say you can eat outside, no problem. All you have to do is carry a bag full of Vrindavan Das and just keep sprinkling on everything and you become one of.
That is a little absurd, very absurd in fact.
This is practiced by ISKCON devotees.
Oh Krishna.
So you see how when you don't get the mercy, then how you can follow the rules? So you have to understand how everyone is compromising. And when you compromise, where do you stop?
There is no stopping.
You follow?
Yes, Prabhu.
Very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. That's how the society is degrading itself.
Yes, Prabhu.
Then it will become non-different from the Hindu movement. In Hindu movement, no rules and regulation work, correct?
Yes, Prabhu. Anyone can do anything they like.
Correct. See how dangerous this is. And this is only 50 years Prabhupada has left, How the movement is going down.
Yes, Prabhu.
Where you find a verse that says that you can sprinkle some Vrindavan Das on the food and it will become prasadam cooked by non-devotees? Is there a verse?
No.
Can anyone here help me where it says the food cooked by non-devotees Krishna will not eat? Can anyone know?
Through Bhagavad Gita 3:13.
3:13 says the food consumed, it becomes sinful, no? If not offered to Krishna. Correct?
Yes, Prabhu.
Specifically, Krishna says, I will not eat from the hands of a non-devotee. Anyone knows? Since you all have no question, maybe you can tell. Where is this place? What verse is it? Anyone? Hello? Oh?
I'm not sure.
Not sure. How come? Hello?
The Lord explicitly mentions that he doesn't have from the hands of a non-devotee.
Yes, explicitly.
Oh.
Hello? 2 times he mentioned that. Spoken by the Lord himself personally.
Okay.
Anyone knows? Hello? Come on, anybody? Nobody, yeah? Oh, there's somebody wrote something here. Gita. Oh, that's another question. All right, before we go to that question, huh? So you see here, try to remember this, because somebody will ask you all these questions and you must be able to answer.
Yes, Prabhu.
Can anyone read this?
Shall I read, Prabhu?
Yes. If nobody else is reading, give others a chance.
Sure, Prabhu. I have no problem with that.
Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
Go ahead,
Even very opulent presentations do not satisfy me if they are offered by non-devotees. But I am pleased by any insignificant offering made by my loving devotees, and I am certainly most pleased when nice presentations of fragrant oil, incense, flowers, and palatable foods are offered with love.
Yes. Can you read that again? Even very opulent presentations, right?
Yes. Even very opulent presentations do not satisfy me if they are offered by non-devotees. But I am pleased by any insignificant offering made by my loving devotees, and I am certainly most pleased when nice presentations of fragrant oil, incense, flowers, and palatable foods are offered with love.
So you see here? Correct?
Yes, Prabhu.
Where else is stated? Huh?
The Supreme Lord said, "O Brahmana, what gift have you brought me from home? I regard as great even the smallest gift offered by my devotees in pure love, but even great offerings presented by non-devotees do not please me."
Huh? Yes?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So please remember this. Huh?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Because if you put even Vrindavan Das, it will not work, no? Huh? Understand?
Yes, Prabhu.
In fact, the Lord will not eat anything even if Tulsi leaf is not there. Because the presence of Tulsi, that's why Krishna accepts, no?
Yes.
Right or not?
Yes, Prabhu.
So you try to understand.
Prabhu, in this regard, can I ask one thing?
Yeah, you can.
Prabhu, in Akshay Patra, they say that we are distributing food, means prasadam, their so-called prasadam at a very large scale. Therefore, we need to hire means non-devotee cooks. And they also give some reference kind of thing of when Prabhupada gave liberty in Hyderabad of for hiring cooks sometimes when it is needed. So how much is it justified, Prabhu?
Well, I don't know. All I know is that what is not offered to Krishna is not prasadam. Correct? So even in Hyderabad case, Prabhupada said hire some Brahmins, you know. He never say go and hire a street sweeper to cook, no? Huh?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes.
Huh? Did he say hire some street sweepers?
No.
Particularly he warned, they don't bring that kind of characters, you know? Yes?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Hmm? So we must understand things, you know. If you're not sure, then why you want to do it? Hmm? Why you have to go in such a big scale? Is it so necessary?
No.
Our core business is preaching what? Or feeding food. Which is our core business?
Preaching.
Yeah?
Preaching.
Our core business is to feed the whole world, or what? What is our core business? Hmm?
No.
What?
Preaching.
Preaching, Prabhu.
Huh? Correct?
So they give reference to Prabhupada when he said that in Mayapur that nobody in our 10-kilometer radius of our temple should go hungry.
So
then,
what has got 100 kilometers to do with 10 kilometers? Hmm?
Yeah, they say that we have expanded the boundary.
Oh, so you're more than Prabhupada, huh? So much so that they hire third-class sweepers to offer the food. Huh? This is called over-endeavoring. Is it not?
Yes, Prabhu.
Hmm? Anyway, their style, their operation, you become so big you cannot even offer prasadam, then what's the objective, the whole thing? Right? Yes?
Yeah.
So therefore, you should expand the preaching. Yes, so many people, no knowledge. Hmm? Yes? Correct?
Yeah.
So we have to be careful, not try to overdo things, you know. Okay, Miss Gita has asked a question. In what form does the soul exist? Once it reaches Vaikuntha, it is said in the Bhagavatam, the resident Vaikuntha also are four-handed. But how exactly do souls exist in Vaikuntha and what form do they serve Krishna? Hmm? So the moment before the soul reached Vaikuntha, he already got his four-handed form, you know. Just like in the case of Ajamil and all, the moment he boarded the Vimanam, the spaceship, you know, he got his four-handed form. Yes? You understand? It's not that only when he go into Vaikuntha, he get his four-handed form. Even before going, he already got his liberated form already. Hmm? It says in the Bhagavatam, the residents of Vaikuntha also are four-handed. Yes. But how exactly do souls exist in Vaikuntha and in what form do they serve Krishna? In Vaikuntha, they all are servants. So there are, as you know, there are four kinds of, liberation. In this verse, I think is here, 4. In this verse, you can see how there are four kinds of liberation. So the devotees don't want them. So these are the four kinds of liberation in the Vaikuntha world. Salokya, Sasti, Samipya, Sarupya, and Ekatva. So you can see here, one of these is Salokya, living on the same planet as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Salokya means they stay in the same Vaikuntha planet and enjoy all the facilities that the Lord has. Then you have another one called Sasti. Sasti liberation, the opulence of the devotee is equal to the opulence of the Supreme Lord. So they get all the opulence. And then Samipya means to be a personal associate of the Lord. In Sarupya, liberation, the bodily features of the devotee are exactly like those of the Supreme Person. So here, four-handed form, like that. So generally in Vaikuntha, everybody gets this four-handed form. So the spiritual world, we cannot try to understand the spiritual world with our limited conditioning. So we have to know that. If you want, you can read these verses. Anyone want to volunteer to read?
Yes, Prabhuji. In the Vaikuntha planets, all the residents are similar in form to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They all engage in devotional service to the Lord without desires for sense gratification. Purport. The residents and the form of living in Vaikuntha are described in this verse. The residents are all like the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayana. In the Vaikuntha planets, Krishna's planetary feature as four-handed Narayana is the predominating deity, and the residents of Vaikuntha Loka are also four-handed, just contrary to a conception here in the material world. Now, nowhere in the material world do we find the human being with four hands. In Vaikuntha Loka, there is no occupation but the service of the Lord, and this service is not rendered with a purpose. Although every service has a particular result, the devotees never aspire for the fulfillment of their own desires. Their desires are fulfilled by rendering transcendental loving service to the Lord. In the Vaikuntha planets is a Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the original person and who can be understood through the Vedic literature. He is full of the uncontaminated mode of goodness, with no place for passion or ignorance. He contributes religious progress for the devotees. The kingdom of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the spiritual sky cannot be understood by any process other than hearing from the description of the Vedas. No one can go see it. In this material world also, one who is unable to pay to go to a far distant place by motorized conveyances can only understand about that place from authentic books. Similarly, the Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky or beyond this material sky, the modern scientists who are trying to travel in space are having difficulty going even to the nearest planet, the moon, to say nothing of the highest planets within the universe. There is no possibility that they can go beyond the material sky and enter the spiritual sky and see for themselves the spiritual planets Vaikuntha. Therefore, the kingdom of God in the spiritual sky can be understood only through the authentic descriptions of the Vedas and Puranas. In the material world, there are three modes of material qualities: goodness, passion, and ignorance. But in the spiritual world, there is no trace of the modes of passion and ignorance. There is only the mode of goodness, which is uncontaminated by any tinge of ignorance or passion. In the material world, even if a person is completely in goodness, he is sometimes subject to be polluted by tinges of the modes of ignorance and passion. But in the Vaikuntha world, the spiritual sky, only the mode of goodness in its pure form exists. The Lord and his devotees reside in the Vaikuntha planets, and they are of the same transcendental quality, namely Shuddha Sattva, the mode of pure goodness. The Vaikuntha planets are very dear to the Vaishnavas, and for the progressive march of the Vaishnavas toward the kingdom of God, the Lord himself helps his devotees. In those Vaikuntha planets, there are many forests which are very auspicious. In those forests, the trees are desired trees, and in all seasons, they are filled with flowers and fruits because everything in the Vaikuntha planets is spiritual and personal. In the Vaikuntha planets, the land, the trees, the fruits, and the flowers and the cows, everything is completely spiritual and personal. The trees are desired trees. On this material planet, the trees can produce fruits and flowers according to the order of material energy. But in the Vaikuntha planets, the trees, the land, the residents, and the animals are all spiritual. There is no difference between the tree and the animal, or the animal and the man. Here the word Murtimat indicates that everything has a spiritual form. Formlessness as conceived by the impersonalists is refuted in this verse. In the Vaikuntha planets, although everything is spiritual, everything has a particular form. The trees and the men have form, and because all of them, although differently formed or spiritual, there is no difference between them.
So in the spiritual world, the trees can speak also. The animal also can speak, you know. It's not that only the man can speak, you know. There's a verse that says the tree is crying to one of the devotees. He said, you know, please ask Krishna, you know, to at least come and step on my shadow. Yeah, the trees are crying for the association of Krishna, like that. So everything is not, you know, like what you see in the material world here.
In the Vaikuntha planets, the inhabitants fly in the airplanes, accompanied by their wives and consorts, and eternally sing of the character and activities of the Lord, which are always devoid of all inauspicious qualities. While singing the glories of the Lord, they deride even the presence of the blossoming Madhavi flowers, which are fragrant and laden with honey. It appears from this verse that the Vaikuntha planets are full of all opulences. There are airplanes in which the inhabitants travel in the spiritual sky with their sweethearts. There is a breeze carrying the fragrance of blossoming flowers, and this breeze is so nice that it also carries the honey of the flowers. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha, however, are so interested in glorifying the Lord that they do not like the disturbance of such a nice breeze while they are chanting the Lord's glories. In other words, they are pure devotees. They consider glorification of the Lord more important than their own sense gratification. In the Vaikuntha planets, there is no question of sense gratification. To smell the fragrance of a blossoming flower is certainly very nice, but it is simply for sense gratification. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha give first preference to the service of the Lord, not their own sense gratification. Serving the Lord in transcendental love yields such transcendental pleasure that in comparison, sense gratification is counted as insignificant. When the king of bees hums in a high pitch, singing the glories of the Lord, there is a temporary lull in the noise of the pigeon, the cuckoo, the crane, the chakravaka, the swan, the parrot, the partridge, and the peacock. Such transcendental birds stop their own singing simply to hear the glories of the Lord. This verse reveals the absolute nature of Vaikuntha. There is no difference between the birds there and the human residents. The situation in the spiritual sky is that everything is spiritual and variegated. Spiritual variegatedness means that everything is animate. There is nothing inanimate. Even the trees, the ground, the plants, the flowers, the birds, and the beasts are all on the level of Krishna consciousness. The special feature of Vaikuntha Loka is that there is no question of sense gratification. In the material world, even an ass enjoys his sound vibration, but in the Vaikunthas, such nice birds as the peacock, the chakravaka, and the cuckoo prefer to hear the vibration of the glories of the Lord from the bees. The principles of devotional service, beginning with hearing and chanting, are very prominent in the Vaikuntha world. Although flowering plants like the Mandara, Kunda, Kurabaka, Utpala, Champaka, Arna, Punnaga, Nagakeshara, Bakula, Lily, and Parijata are full of transcendental fragrance, they are still conscious of the austerities performed by Tulsi, for Tulsi is given special preference by the Lord, who garlands himself with Tulsi leaves. The importance of Tulsi leaves is very clearly mentioned here. Tulsi plants and their leaves are very important in devotional service. Devotees are recommended to water the Tulsi tree every day and collect the leaves to worship the Lord. One time an atheistic Swami remarked, "What is the use of watering the Tulsi plant? It is better to water eggplant. By watering the eggplant, one can get some fruits, but what is the use of watering the Tulsi?" These foolish creatures, unacquainted with the devotional service, sometimes play havoc with the education of people in general. The most important thing about the spiritual world is that there is no envy among the devotees there. This is true even among the flowers, which are all conscious of the greatness of Tulsi. In the Vaikuntha world entered by the 4 Kumaras, even the birds and flowers are conscious of service to the Lord. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha travel in their airplanes made of lapis lazuli, emerald, and gold. Although crowded by their consorts who have large hips and beautiful smiling faces, they cannot be stimulated to passion by their mirth and beautiful charms. In the material world, opulences are achieved by materialistic persons by dint of their labor. One cannot enjoy material prosperity unless he works very hard to achieve it. But the devotees of the Lord, who are residents of Vaikuntha, have the opportunity to enjoy a transcendental situation of jewels and emeralds. Ornaments made of gold bedecked with jewels are achieved not by working hard, but by the benediction of the Lord. In other words, devotees in the Vaikuntha world or even in this material world cannot be poverty-stricken, as is sometimes supposed. They have ample opulences for enjoyment, but they need not labor to achieve them. It is also stated that in the Vaikuntha world, the consorts of the residents are many, many times more beautiful than we can find in this material world, even in the high planets. It is specifically mentioned here that a woman's large hips are very attractive and they stimulate man's passion. But the wonderful feature of Vaikuntha is that although the women have large hips and beautiful faces and are decorated with ornaments of emeralds and jewels, the men are so absorbed in Krishna consciousness that the beautiful bodies of the women cannot attract them. In other words, there is enjoyment of the association of the opposite sex, but there is no sexual relationship. The residents of Vaikuntha have a better standard of pleasure, so there is no need of sex pleasure. The ladies in the Vaikuntha planets are as beautiful as a goddess of fortune herself. Such transcendently beautiful ladies, their hands playing with lotuses and their leg bangles tinkling, are sometimes seen sweeping the marble walls, which are bedecked at intervals with golden borders in order to receive the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that the Supreme Lord Govinda is always served in his abode by many, many millions of goddesses of fortune. Lakshmi Sahasra Sata Sambhrama Sevyamanam. These millions and trillions of goddesses of fortune who reside in the Vaikuntha planets are not exactly consorts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but are the wives of the devotees of the Lord, and also engage in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is stated here that in the Vaikuntha planets, the houses are made of marble. Similarly, in the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that the ground on the Vaikuntha planets is made of touchstone. Thus, there is no need to sweep the stone in Vaikuntha, for there is hardly any dust on it. But still, in order to satisfy the Lord, the ladies there always engage in dusting the marble walls. Why? The reason is that they are eager to achieve the grace of the Lord by doing so. It is also stated here that in the Vaikuntha planets, the goddesses of fortune are faultless. Generally, the goddesses of fortune does not remain steadily in one place. Her name is Chanchala, which means one who is not steady. We find therefore that a man who is very rich may become the poorest of the poor. Another example is Ravana. Ravana took away Lakshmi, Sitaji, to his kingdom, and instead of being happy by the grace of Lakshmi, his family and his kingdom were vanquished. Thus, Lakshmi in the house of Ravana is Chanchala or unsteady. Men of Ravana's class want Lakshmi only without her husband, Narayana. Therefore, they become unsteady due to Lakshmi ji. Materialistic persons find fault on the part of Lakshmi, but in Vaikuntha, Lakshmi ji is fixed in the service of the Lord. In spite of her being the goddess of fortune, she cannot be happy without the grace of the Lord. Even the goddess of fortune needs the Lord's grace in order to be happy. Yet in the material world, even Brahma, the highest created being, seeks the favor of Lakshmi for happiness. The goddesses of fortune worship the Lord in their own gardens by offering tulsi leaves on the coral paved banks of transcendental reservoirs of water. While offering worship to the Lord, they can see on the water the reflection of their beautiful faces with raised noses, and it appears that they have become more beautiful because of the Lord's kissing their faces. Generally, when a woman is kissed by her husband, her face becomes more beautiful. In Vaikuntha also, although the goddess of fortune is naturally as beautiful as can be imagined, she nevertheless awaits the kissing of the Lord to make her face more beautiful. The beautiful face of the goddess of fortune appears in ponds of transcendental crystal water when she worships the Lord with tulsi leaves in her garden. It is very much regrettable that unfortunate people do not discuss the description of the Vaikuntha planets, but engage in topics which are unworthy to hear and which bewilder one's intelligence. Those who give up the topics of Vaikuntha and take to talk of the material world are thrown into the darkest region of ignorance. The most unfortunate persons are the impersonalists, who cannot understand the transcendental variegatedness of the spiritual world. They're afraid to talk about the beauty of the Vaikuntha planets because they think that the variegatedness must be material. Such impersonalists think that the spiritual world is completely void, or in other words, that there is no variegatedness. This mentality is described here as kukata matignihi, the intelligence bewildered by the unworthy words. The philosophies of voidness and of the impersonal situation of the spiritual world are condemned here because they bewilder one's intelligence. How can the impersonalist and the void philosopher think of this material world, which is full of variegatedness, and then they say that there is no variegatedness in the spiritual world? It is said that this material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So unless there is variegatedness in the spiritual world, how can there be temporary variegatedness in the material world? That one can transcend this material world does not imply that there is no transcendental variegatedness. Here in the Bhagavatam, in this verse particularly, it is stressed that people who try to discuss and understand the real spiritual nature of the spiritual sky and the Vaikunthas are fortunate. The variegatedness of the Vaikuntha planets is described in relation to the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. But instead of trying to understand the spiritual abode and the spiritual activities of the Lord, people are more interested in politics and economic developments. They hold many conventions, meetings, and discussions to solve the problems of this worldly situation, where they can remain for only a few years, but they are not interested in understanding the spiritual situation of the material of the Vaikuntha world. If they are at all fortunate, they become interested in going back home, back to Godhead. But unless they understand the spiritual world, they rot in this material darkness continuously.
So does that answer the question?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
So you know, what the spiritual world is about. Because there are many more descriptions, but I think this is pretty much. Any other questions? Yes. So unless we hear, it says, unless we hear about the spiritual world and know, then, we'll not understand. That is why the description is also there. Again, Lord Brahma, he also saw the spiritual world, And the Lord revealed himself to him. Brahma, he saw. The Lord showed him. Again here, the Lord did see the description of the Vaikuntha planet again. Can someone else want to continue?
Anyone would like to read?
The inhabitants of the Vaikuntha planets are described as having a glowing sky bluish complexion. Their eyes resemble lotus flowers, their dress is of yellowish color, and their bodily features are very attractive. They are just the age of growing youths. They all have 4 hands. They're all nicely decorated with pearl necklaces with ornamental medallions, and they all appear to be effulgent.
Somebody is chanting. Maybe he can mute himself. Huh? Carry on reading.
The inhabitants in Vaikuntha Loka are all personalities with spiritual bodily features not to be found in the material world. We can find the descriptions in the revealed scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam. Impersonal descriptions of transcendence in the scriptures indicate that the bodily features in Vaikuntha Loka are never to be seen in any part of the universe. As there are different bodily features in different places of a particular planet, or as there are different bodily features between bodies in different planets, similarly, the bodily features of the inhabitants in Vaikuntha Loka are completely different from those in the material universe. For example, the 4 hands are distinct from the 2 hands in this world. Some of them are effulgent like coral and diamonds in complexion and have garlands on their heads, blooming like lotus flowers, and some wear earrings. There are some inhabitants who have attained the liberation of Sarupya or possessing bodily features like those of the personality of Godhead. The Vaidurya diamond is especially meant for the personality of Godhead, but one who achieves the liberation of bodily equality with the God is especially favored with such diamonds on his body. The Vaikuntha planets are also surrounded by various airplanes, all glowing and brilliantly situated. These airplanes belong to the great Mahatmas or devotees of the Lord. The ladies are as beautiful as lightning because of their celestial complexions, and all these combined together appear just like the sky decorated with both clouds and lightning. It appears that in the Vaikuntha planets, there are also airplanes brilliantly glowing, and they're occupied by the great devotees of the Lord, with ladies of celestial beauty as brilliant as lightning. As there are airplanes, so there must be different types of carriages like airplanes, but they may not be driven machines as we have experienced in this world. Because everything is of the same nature of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, the airplanes and carriages are of the same quality as Brahman. Although there is nothing except Brahman, one should not mistakenly think that there is only one, there is only void and no variegatedness. Thinking like that is due to a poor fund of knowledge. Otherwise, no one would have such a misconception of voidness in Brahman. As there are airplanes, ladies and gentlemen, so there must be cities and houses and everything else just suitable to the particular planets. One should not carry the ideas of imperfection from this world to the transcendental world and not take into consideration the nature of the atmosphere, which is completely free from the influence of time, etc., as described previously. The goddess of fortune in her transcendental form is engaged in the loving service of the Lord's lotus feet, and being moved by the black bees, followers of spring, she is not only engaged in variegated pleasure, service to the Lord, along with her constant companions, but is also engaged in singing the glories of the Lord's activities. Lord Brahma saw in the Vaikuntha planets the personality of Godhead, who is the Lord of the entire devotee community, the Lord of the goddess of fortune, the Lord of all sacrifices, and the Lord of the universe, and who is served by the foremost servitors like Nanda, Sunanda, Prabala, and Arhana, his immediate associates. When we speak of a king, it is naturally understood that the king is accompanied by his confidential associates like a secretary, private secretary, aide-de-camp, ministers, and advisors. So also when we see the Lord, we see him with his different energies, associates, confidential servitors, etc. So the Supreme Lord, who is the leader of all living entities, the Lord of all devotee sects, the Lord of all opulences, the Lord of sacrifices, and the enjoyer of everything in his entire creation, is not only the Supreme Person, but is also always surrounded by his immediate associates, all engaged in their loving transcendental service to him. The personality of Godhead, seen leaning favorably towards his loving servitors, his very sight intoxicating and attractive, appeared to be very much satisfied. He had a smiling face decorated with an enchanting reddish hue. He was dressed in yellow robes and wore earrings and a helmet on his head. He had 4 hands, and his chest was marked with the lines of the goddess of fortune. In the Bhatma Purana, Uttarakanda, there is a full description of the Yoga Pita, or the particular place where the Lord gives audience to his eternal devotees. In that Yoga Pita, the personifications of religion, knowledge, opulence, and renunciation are all seated at the lotus feet of the Lord. The 4 Vedas, namely Rik, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva, are present there personally to advise the Lord. The 16 energies headed by Kanda are all present there. Kanda and Kumuda are the first 2 doorkeepers at the middle door. The first 2 doorkeepers at the middle door are the doorkeepers named Bhadra and Subhadra, and at the last door are Jaya and Vijaya. There are other doorkeepers also named Kumuda, Kumudaksha, Pundarika, Vamana, Sankukarna, Sarvanetra, Sumukha, etc. The Lord's palace is well decorated and protected by the above-mentioned doorkeepers. The Lord was seated on his throne and was surrounded by different energies, namely the 4, the 16, and the 5, and he was endowed with the 6 natural opulences along with other insignificant energies of the temporary character. But he was a factual Supreme Lord, enjoying his own abode. The Lord is naturally endowed with the 6 opulences. Specifically, he is the richest, he is the most powerful, he is the most famous, he is the most beautiful, he is the greatest in knowledge, and he is the greatest renouncer as well. As for his material creative energies, he is served by the 4, namely the principles of Prakriti, Purusha, Mahat Tattva, and ego. He is served by the 16, namely the 5 gross elements, earth, water, air, fire, and sky, and the 5 perceptive sense organs, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin, the 5 working sense organs, the hands, legs, voice, evacuation, outlet, and genitals, and the mind. And he's also served by the 5, which include the sense objects, namely form, taste, smell, sound, and touch. All these 25 items serve the Lord in the material creation, and all of them are personally present in Vaikuntha to serve the Lord there. The insignificant opulences, numbering 8, the Ashta Siddhis attained by yoga for temporary overlordship, are also under his control, but he is naturally full with all such powers without any effort, and therefore he is a Supreme Lord. The living being, by severe penance and performance of bodily exercises, can temporarily attain some wonderful power, but that doesn't make him the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord, by his own potency, is unlimitedly more powerful than any yogi. He is unlimitedly more learned than any jnani. He is unlimitedly richer than any wealthy person. He is unlimitedly more beautiful than any beautiful living being, and is unlimitedly more charitable than any philanthropist. He is above all. No one is equal to or greater than him, nor can anyone reach his level of perfection in any of the above powers by any amount of penance or yogic demonstrations. The yogis are dependent on his mercy. Out of his immensely charitable disposition, he can award some temporary powers to the yogis because of the yogis hankering after them. But to his unalloyed devotees who do not want anything from the Lord, save and accept his transcendental service, the Lord is so pleased that he gives himself in exchange for the unalloyed service. Lord Brahma, the seeing the personality of Godhead in his fullness, was overwhelmed with joy within his heart. His eyes filled with tears of love, and in full transcendental love and ecstasy, he bowed down before the Lord. That is the way of the highest perfection for the living being. Paramahamsa.
So you see here how the Vaikuntha planet, all these things are described by Lord Brahma. So he saw this is not something, imaginary, or it is completely some mythological facts. No, Brahma actually saw. You can see later on the Brahma and the Lord shook hands, it is there. So Vaikuntha planet is not some dream world, though.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, all the transcendental forms of the Lord are situated in the spiritual sky. They preside over spiritual planets in that abode, but there is no counting those Vaikuntha planets. The breadth of each Vaikuntha planet is described as 8 miles multiplied by 100, by 1000, by 10,000, by 100,000, and by 10 million. In other words, each Vaikuntha planet is expanded beyond our ability to measure. Each Vaikuntha planet is very large and each is made of spiritual bliss. The inhabitants are all associates of the Supreme Lord, and they are full opulence like the Lord himself. This is how the Vaikuntha planets are all situated. Since all the Vaikuntha planets are located in a certain corner of the spiritual sky, who can measure the spiritual sky? The shape of the spiritual sky is compared to a lotus flower. The topmost region of that flower is called the whirl, and within that whirl is Krishna's abode. The petals of the spiritual lotus flower consist of many Vaikuntha planets. Each Vaikuntha planet is full of spiritual bliss, complete opulence and space, and each is inhabited by incarnations. If Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva cannot estimate the length and breadth of the spiritual sky and the Vaikuntha planets, how can ordinary living entities begin to imagine them? O Supreme Great One, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, O Super Soul, Master of all mystic power, your pastimes are taking place continuously in these worlds, but who can estimate where, how, and when you're employing your spiritual energy and performing your pastimes? No one can understand the mystery of these activities. The spiritual qualities of Krishna are also unlimited. Great personalities like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the 4 Kumaras cannot estimate the spiritual qualities of the Lord. In time, great scientists may be able to count all the atoms of the universe, all the stars and planets in the sky, and all the particles of snow. But who among them can count the unlimited transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? He descends on the surface of the globe for the benefit of all living entities. To say nothing of Lord Brahma, even Lord Ananta, who has thousands of heads, cannot reach the end of the Lord's transcendental qualities, even though he is continuously chanting their praises. If I, Lord Brahma, and your elder brothers, the great saints and sages, cannot understand the limits of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is full of various energies, who else can understand them? Although constantly chanting about his transcendental qualities, the 1,000-hooded Lord Shesha has not yet reached the end of the Lord's activities. To say nothing of Anantadeva, even Lord Krishna himself cannot find an end to his own transcendental qualities. Indeed, he himself is always eager to know them. My Lord, you are unlimited. Even the predominating deities of the higher planetary systems, including Lord Brahma, cannot find your limitations. Nor can you yourself ascertain the limit of your qualities. Like atoms in the sky, there are multi-universes with 7 coverings, and these are rotating in due course of time. All the experts in Vedic understanding are searching for you by eliminating the material elements. In this way, searching and searching, they come to the conclusion that everything is complete in you. Thus, you are the resort of everything. This is the conclusion of all Vedic experts. Apart from all argument, logic, and negative or positive processes, when Lord Sri Krishna was present as the Supreme Personality of Godhead at Vrindavana, no one could find a limit to his potencies by studying his characteristics and activities. At Vrindavana, the Lord immediately created all material and spiritual planets in one moment. Indeed, all of them were created with their predominating deities. We do not hear of such wonderful things anywhere else. Simply by one's hearing of those incidents, one's consciousness is agitated and cleansed. According to Sukadeva Goswami, Krishna had unlimited calves and cowherd boys with him. No one could count their actual number. Each of the cowherd boys were tending calves to the extent of a koti, arpuda, sanka, and padma. That is the way of counting. According to Vedic mathematical calculations, the following enumeration system is used: units, tens, dasa, hundreds, sata, thousands, sahasra, 10,000 ayuta, and 100,000 laksa. 10 times laksa is niyuta, 10 times niyuta is koti, 10 times koti is arbuda, 10 times arbuda is vrinda, 10 times vrinda is karva, 10 times karva is nikarva, 10 times nikarva is sanka, 10 times sanka is padma, and 10 times padma is sagara. 10 times sagara is antya, and 10 times antya is madhya, and 10 times madhya is parardha. Each item is 10 times greater than the previous one. Thus, all the cowherd boys who were companions of Krishna had many calves to take care of. All the cowherd boys had unlimited calves. Similarly, their canes, flutes, lotus flowers, horns, garments, and ornaments were all unlimited. They cannot be limited by writing about them. The cowherd boys then became 400 Narayanas, predominating deities of the Vaikuntha planets. All the separate Brahmas from different universes began to offer their prayers onto the Lords. All these transcendental bodies emanated from the body of Krishna, and within a second they all entered again into his body.
So you can see how the Vaikuntha place is beyond our imagination.
Yes, Prabhu.
Understand? Spiritual world, we cannot conceive of it. That's why when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was speaking to Sanatana Goswami, he says, we cannot talk about the spiritual world, let's just talk about this material world. You understand? So this is mind-boggling. So the only thing we can do is fold our hand, accept whatever is spoken. Yes?
Yes, Prabhu.
Any other questions? Carry on reading.
Because it consists of 3/4 of the Lord's energy, the spiritual world is called Tripad Bhuta. Being a manifestation of 1/4 of the Lord's energy, the material world is called Ekapada. The 3/4 part of Lord Krishna's energy is beyond our speaking power. Let us therefore hear elaborately about the remaining 1/4 of his energy.
Understand? So the 3/4 is beyond our speaking power. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself is saying. So to try to understand the spiritual world is not so easy. Yes?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, any other questions? Hello?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, before attending this session, I was so distressed, and after this, I became so lighted after listening to the lecture and all. I was having so many questions, and I was so much confused that even one question was not coming out of me. home.
Yeah, I was wondering why it's so quiet today. Always asking so many questions.
But right now, I'm like, I mean, after hearing about Vaikuntha and the way you showed all the verses, I became so much lighthearted. But my question, I mean, the thing I was thinking about it is like, after hearing all these lectures so far, I'm also eager to be like you all, Prabhuji. Means whoever is doing completely devotional service and all. So, but I'm working right now. When I'm working, I sometimes feel like it is like parakiya rasa. Means I cannot compare in that level, but it's like when I'm not completely devotional, but I'm very eager to know about Krishna and doing everything, learning everything from you and wanted to do for Krishna. But I'm afraid that if I completely become full-time or something like that, I may offend any Vaishnava or not, because I have the traces of negativities and all in my mind. Do I offend them? Because here right now I'm doing job, and even if I have negativities, I will show it on them. Because I'm seeing Vaishnava so great. When I completely join them, what may happen to me?
You want to read this?
Maharaj Parikshit was a realist. Like the bee who accepts only the essence of a flower, he knew perfectly well that in this age of Kali, auspicious acts produce good effects immediately, whereas inauspicious acts must be actually performed to render effects. So he was never envious of the personality of Kali. The age of Kali is called the fallen age. In this fallen age, because the living beings are in an awkward position, the Supreme Lord has given some special facilities to them. So by the will of the Lord, a living being does not become a victim of a sinful act until the act is actually performed. In other ages, simply by thinking of performing a sinful act, one used to become a victim of the act. On the contrary, a living being in this age is awarded with the results of pious act simply by thinking of them. Maharaj Parikshit, being the most learned and experienced king by the grace of the Lord, was not unnecessarily envious of the personality of Kali, because the king did not intend to give him any chance to perform any sinful act. The king protected his subjects from falling prey to the sinful acts of the age of Kali. And at the same time, he gave full facility to the personality of Kali by allotting him some particular places. At the end of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that even though all nefarious activities of the personality of Kali are present, there is a great advantage in the age of Kali. One can attain salvation simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Thus, Maharaj Parikshit made an organized effort to propagate the chanting of the Lord's holy name, and thus he saved the citizens from the clutches of Kali. It is for this advantage only that great sages sometimes wish all good for the age of Kali. In the Vedas also it is stated that by discourse on Lord Krishna's activities, one can get rid of all the disadvantages of the age of Kali. In the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also said that by the recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Supreme Lord becomes at once arrested within one's heart. These are some of the great advantages of the age of Kali, and Maharaja Parikshit took all the advantages and did not think any ill of the personality of Kali, true to his Vaishnavite cult.
So you understand this Kali Yuga?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Until you perform the activity, you don't get implicated. In other yugas, by thinking of it already, you are implicated, no?
Yes.
The same time, if you think of Krishna, you get the result in Kali Yuga. Even just thinking, not actually, you are not even highly Krishna conscious or whatever, but just thinking already, you get so much benefit. But to commit sinful activities, you must actually perform it. So this is a special benediction for Kali Yuga. So you don't have to worry committing offense mentally, that's another thing. But unless you really commit the offense, it doesn't take effect, no? But
yes,
that doesn't mean that we should keep thinking of ill bad over devotee. That also is not so good, no?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So best is to surrender. That's the best. Because everybody is frightened. Because of that fear, that also gives them the impetus not to commit that kind of offense. Correct?
Yes.
So the best way is to keep serving the devotees. In that way, you won't get any implication, you know.
Yes, Prabhuji.
If you don't serve the devotees and if you just serve your senses, you start thinking that you are a great devotee, and that way you will commit so much offenses. So the neophyte devotee is always in that category, you know, always creating offenses. That's why you need the association of stronger devotees. That way they can guide and advise. And that will be a good precaution, you know, to take good advice. Yes?
Yes, Prabhuji. So, Prabhuji, whatever, I mean, full-time devotees do, is it like completely spiritual? I mean, whatever they do is completely right, like that?
Well, in a spiritual circle, when you serve Krishna, it is spiritual. Even though you are eating, doing everything material, but because you are linking it with Krishna, so it becomes spiritual. You understand?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Just give you an example. We may be thinking of some nonsense thing, but the moment you start thinking of Krishna, this nonsense idea goes away. Yes?
Yes.
Understand? The thinking activity is there, but because you're thinking of Krishna, it becomes transcendental. But the same thing, you think of some sense gratification thing, then you become implicated. Thinking also the same mind. So that's all we need to do, just change the activity to bring it to Krishna. That's why Prabhupada said Krishna conscious, you know. Instead of becoming bodily conscious, we become Krishna conscious. Then everything is there. No need to change anything. You follow?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So that is the secret. The secret, if you learn from the pure devotee, then you save the same thing. No need to change you. That's why Ramananda Rai and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was talking, and when Ramananda Rai he told this verse, no? Jnana priyasam udapasya, you know. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say, oh, this is good, you know. This verse is from the 10th canto, 10, you know, Jnana priyasam udapasya, spoken by Brahma, actually, Lord Brahma, you know, 10, 14, yeah. So here, when he quoted this verse, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stopped, you know, inquiry. You don't have to change your position. You simply have to do Jnana priyasam udapasya. This Jnana priyasam is endeavor, udapasya, this one. Give up the speculation, you know. Just throw away your speculation. See? And surrender. Namanta eva. Surrender to the devotees, you know. Those who are, even while remaining situated in the established social position, throw away the speculative knowledge, you see. Give up the speculative knowledge with their body, mind, and words. And offer all respect to the description of your personality and activities, dedicating their lives to this narration, which are vibrated by you personally or by your pure devotees. Certainly conquer your lordship, although you are otherwise unconquerable by anyone within the three worlds. So the whole idea is give up speculation and take shelter of the devotees. And here, by hearing from the pure devotees, we will be able to conquer the unconquerable Lord. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this, he said, yes, this is good. You understand? This is what we need to do. Because we are always with our mind, and our mind is always stirring up some kind of concoction, some kind of speculation. Is it not?
Yes, Prabhuji.
This is the problem. So we must learn how to bring our mind always to Krishna. That's why Krishna also said in the Bhagavad Gita, no? Man mana bhava mat bhakta. Man mana, your mind, mat bhava, man mana mat bhava, become thinking of me, become Krishna conscious. So how to do that? That's why chanting has been introduced by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So when we chant and hear, then this mind can be subdued. Then this crazy mind will be peaceful. Because the mind cannot be reconciled in anything else but only the Supreme Lord. No. You cannot try to do yoga and try to do all kind of stuff. It will not work. No. Thereafter, you should meditate upon the limbs of Vishnu one after another without being deviated from the conception of the complete body. Thus the mind becomes free from all sense objects. There should be no other thing to be thought upon, because the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu is the ultimate truth. The mind becomes completely reconciled in Him only. See that?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So our mind would only become peaceful when we are with the Lord. The Lord also says that in the Bhagavad Gita. No? We have quoted this verse many, many times. Right? This verse we've said so many times, this verse. Nasti buddhi ayuktasya, nacha yuktasya bhavana, nacha bhaviyataha santir, asantasya kutaha sukam. One who is not connected with the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? Yes?
Yes.
So this is the problem, because we are in the material world, our senses are always acting with a sense object, Our mind is attracted to these things, You follow? So the only way is to some or other bring Krishna back, Thing is, this verse, let's see. Yeah. The sages headed by Sanaka said, "O Lord, people's mind are naturally attracted to material sense objects. And similarly, the sense objects in the form of desire enter into the mind. Therefore, how can a person who desires liberation, who desires to cross over activity of sense gratification, destroy this mutual relationship between the sense object and the mind? Please explain this to us. This is the question you're asking. Yes?
Yes.
So of course, the Lord goes on to explain. I think it's 25. My dear sons, the mind has a natural proclivity to enter into the material sense objects. Similarly, the sense object enter into the mind. But both this material mind and sense objects are merely destination that cover the spirit soul, which is part and parcel of. So they have to understand are merely destinations. So we should try to break that by becoming Krishna conscious, The answer is also given here in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Can see. So all these things means they're simply as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us, You just have to chant, no? Yes?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So here, the answer is given here. So we have to learn how to follow this, and that means just take the instruction of Srila Prabhupada and everything will become easy. The mind of one meditating upon the objects of sense gratification is certainly entangled in such objects. But if one constantly remembers me, then the mind is absorbed in me. Right?
Yes, Prabhu.
And that comes by chanting. Therefore, one should reject all material process or elevation which are like the mental creation of a dream and should completely absorb one's mind in me. By constantly thinking of me, one becomes purified. So this is the solution, no? Yes?
Yes.
Naturally, everybody is caught by Maya. Who is not caught by Maya? But the solution is there. All we have to do is open the mouth. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Even if you cannot do that, at least mentally you start chanting, no? Correct?
Yes, yes, Prabhuji.
But
Prabhuji, you know everything. I mean, you read everything, so you know what is right, what is wrong, and when, with whom, how to be, like with the low neophytes, how to be, and with advanced devotees, and so everything you know. But I do not know. I am following you. When I see something in you today, I feel like, okay, I should also do like this, and immediately I start, and I take only that particular one point of view and I try to do it here, and it offends the other people, like somebody else, I mean, who are completely non-devotees and all. So today in verse, you have showed us that religion related to that. I mean, you were saying we have to be very kind and not to offend, criticize anything. But when you do it, it is right. But when I do it, because I'm not imitating you, I'm in an attempt to follow you, I'm committing mistakes. I mean, how to correct it means, how can I rectify?
you don't imitate, you just follow, no? Imitating is difficult, no? Like Lord Shiva, he drank an ocean of poison, no? We cannot imitate that, no? Correct?
Yes.
So what you do is simply follow the instruction. The best thing you can do is chant. Understand? And those who come to you to get instruction, you can instruct. Those who don't want to take instruction, you try to tell them, they won't listen, no? They get more angry. It is says that you try to give advice to fools and rascals, they don't become patient, they become angry.
Yes.
So we have to be careful, know how to do it in a very tactful way. That requires some experience, you learn over your life, you are a young girl now. As you practice more and more, Krishna is in your heart, he will reveal it to you how to tackle certain problems.
So at that time, I am becoming distressed, Prabhuji. Means like it won't affect you, but for me, like for example, I'm trying to learn today something, and some people, I don't like completely materialistic things. They come and influence that to me. So I try to tell them Krishna, Krishna all the time. They close ears and they just run away from me like that. It is.
So that's one way to get rid of them, no?
Okay. Yes, Prabhuji, nice.
Yeah, that's just have to do that. Just like we say, you speak until they don't want to hear, they go away, they won't disturb you, right? So it's very hard to work with these non-devotees, they're always crazy, Understand? That's why it says in the Shastra is always to avoid them,
So means at that moment, how I cannot shout at them? I mean, see, you are like, I will tell them, you are not intelligent, you are less intelligent, but as per them, they are intelligent. So they won't accept that.
That's why you tell them like this kind of word, they surely get angry, correct?
Yes.
If someone who got big PhD and you tell them you are not intelligent, you're less intelligent, you will get really upset.
Yes.
Right? So you have to tell them that you are very intelligent, you're a very, very intelligent person. So why don't you also read these books which are spoken by God? So you flatter them.
Yes, yes.
Just like one astrologer, he was telling the truth, in such a time you will die. Then everybody avoided him because he was telling the truth. So he went and asked how to solve this problem. See, you don't say directly, you say indirectly, no? You flatter them. Oh, you're such a nice person. I think You probably leave the body at this time and go back to the spiritual world. Oh, you'll be very happy to hear that. Understand? So you must learn how to talk tactfully, you know. You understand? Huh? You become very direct. Of course, those people who can take it, you can speak like that, but those many cannot, you know. So you have to learn how to use your intelligence to preach.
But internally, I feel very bad, Prabhuji. Like, I cannot tell, like, this is okay. Means, every time I tell them, okay, they keep on doing that only. Means, your
No,
wife.
you don't say okay. You say it is wrong, but you say tactfully, you know.
Okay, yes, got it.
You're not saying you do things are okay. We say tactfully, no. Telling him direct. Unless they are really surrendered, then you can, you know, shout at them and do everything. But if they are not, then what to do? Correct?
Yes.
Yes or not? That's why there's a verse, it said that the intelligent should not disrupt the mind of the less intelligent, no? But should encourage them in the spirit of devotion.
Okay.
Encourage them in working in the spirit of devotion. This verse is there in the Bhagavad Gita, no? So we should try to tell them, say, yeah, you're doing nicely, but why don't you offer this to Krishna and you eat and you become so good? Oh, really? How to offer? Just say Hare Krishna. You understand? So all these ways, you know, some or other to make a devotee is not so easy, no? Correct?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Takes a lot of strength and energy, you know. And everybody, so of course, another thing is purity. I mean, we must be really pure to make some devotees. First of all, I don't know how pure we are. I mean, I don't know about you, but at least myself, I can say, I think the only pure person I can think of is Prabhupada, no? So better I try to give Prabhupada to someone and that way it will become more inspired. If I try to put myself there and all that, it's going to be difficult.
Yes.
You understand? So that's why we give them the book to read and try to encourage them in that way. Like here now, all I'm doing is just showing you what Prabhupada is saying. Correct? Not what I'm saying. Huh?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So then you are convinced. Everybody is convinced. When they are reading, get purified. Correct?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So we should think like that, no? Don't get discouraged. Carry on. Okay, I guess, is there any more questions? Otherwise, I have to thank all of you for your time spent with us. I hope you got yourself encouraged. Yes, if anybody want to say anything?
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Before I came to the session, I was like confused. Like I was trying some things and I was thinking things will work out, not work out like this or like that. And once I like attended the session and got your association, I'm just feeling so much better, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Got to hear about Krishna, no? Whenever you hear about Krishna, everything gets purified. Yes?
Yes, Prabhu, from your mouth, it is just very sweet.
This is what I want to say, Prabhuji. I mean, whenever you say, we will automatically get healed. I mean, how I was before attending the session, so much heavy heart and all. Now it's like completely light-hearted and healing. That comes from you only, Prabhuji.
I don't know about that. We all read together.
I mean, just sometimes we come and listen. Only for hearing you, I come sometimes.
Okay, I know you are my good friend. All glories to you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Anybody else got anything else to say?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances of
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu. Very good words.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Prabhuji, Pranam Jai Shri Prabhupada. Thank you for your kind association, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Looks like only the ladies are speaking, huh? Except for one man, Raj Panchal, nobody else, huh? Okay, I better not trouble you and put you on the spot. Thank you all of again, giving me your nice association. All glories to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thanks, everyone.